Wow. Which ones? Let me see. Someone raise their hand. Which one have you seen?
Well, I've seen a Chicago Bears one.
Awesome. Somebody else? Oakland Raiders. Well, I thought as a little treat while I'm speaking, I could pass around my ring. Just don't run. I can still catch you. And make sure my wife gets it back. That's from 2006. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys all for bringing me in today. I'm truly honored to be here. I think what you guys are doing is truly commendable. It's remarkable. And if you guys keep it up, you guys will go really far in life. I promise you that. I'm very impressed with you so far, so keep it up. I played 5 seasons in the NFL, 2 for the Dallas Cowboys, and 3 for the Indianapolis Colts, winning a Super Bowl with the Indianapolis Colts in 2007 against the Chicago Bears. It was the last game of my career. But I'm not really here to talk about football per se. Yes, that's part of my story, but I'm here to talk about a condition that I live with, a disorder. It's called bipolar disorder. I've had it my entire life. I wasn't diagnosed until about 4 years ago, but it's something that I've had to overcome without knowing what was going on. And that's what I'm here to talk about a little bit, is overcoming obstacles, challenges. Because I promise, if you haven't yet in your life overcome some major obstacles, you will. And it's how you handle them. And I'm sure you guys will handle them well. I tell my story in chronological order. It's easier for me to remember. So I'm going to start with myself as a child, younger than you. I grew up in Howell, New Jersey, and I had symptoms as way back as 6 or 7 years old. I can remember sitting on my mother's lap in the backyard of our New Jersey home, scared to death, filled with fear, anxiety, about going to bed at night. Something as simple as that, because I couldn't sleep. I had what we call racing thoughts as a kid, and I would toss and turn, and I know a lot of people get them, but at 7 years old, I would turn my clock around at night so I couldn't see it. I would keep my brother up, because I shared a bedroom with my brother. I'd keep him up all night, ask him, Kevin, are you asleep? Why can't I sleep? I would burden my parents, why can't I sleep? And we just thought it was me. We had no idea why. Now, I was also very, very irritable kid, moody. I earned the nickname the Bear from my favorite aunt because I was a bear, and I still am today. Ask my wife. I've lived with that. My roommates in college all think I was just a very moody bear, but people loved me anyway, so it's okay. But the most concerning factor was probably around the age of 10, 11, 12. In that area, I had suicidal thoughts. And it wasn't just, I flunked the test or my girlfriend broke up with me. They were real. They were real. And it was because I had an undiagnosed mental disorder. I would want to die as a little kid, but it wasn't. These feelings weren't from getting bullied at school, because I was a good student. I was popular. I had a lot of friends. I was a good athlete. It was because I had a mental illness. But these feelings always were consistent. By the time I got to high school, things had kind of changed. My family, we moved from Howell, New Jersey to Buffalo, New York, and I began to succeed in sports. I was a good student, but I had a lot of pressure on me to succeed because my father was a football player too. He was a first-round draft pick. He was 8th pick in the NFL back in 1974. He played 8 years in the league. He was one of the best players to ever play. He was an All-American linebacker at Penn State. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like my dad. I had a brother, an older brother, who went and could have played at any college he wanted to in the country. He went to Syracuse University and won 5 bowl games there. He was a heck of an athlete. I wanted to be like my older brother. On top of that, I had a brother-in-law, Drew Haddad, who played 5 years in the NFL. He was older than me as well. So I had these 3 men, my idols, above me that I wanted to be like. And I was battling these demons in my head, and it was very difficult. But I got my shot. I had 2 scholarship offers. One to the University of Maine, and the other one was to Northern Arizona University. Unfortunately, I didn't succeed in the classroom like I should have. It limited me a lot. Scouts came through my junior year, football coaches came through to look at me and to bring me to their schools to play, but I didn't have the grades. So I can only really blame myself. But I still had 2 opportunities. One, like I said, was Maine, and I went on a visit there. They bring you on a visit to see if you want to go to school there. And I don't know how many of you guys know who Stephen King is, but he's from Maine, and his house was right there on campus. So there was no way I was going. No way. So I chose Northern Arizona University, 2,000 miles away from my support system, 2,000 miles away from my home, to follow a dream to play in the NFL. It was tough. I eventually fell in love with Flagstaff. I mean, who wouldn't? It's beautiful there, especially when you come from Buffalo, New York. But I struggled mentally there. I had some conduct problems. I had some grade problems. I had some on-the-field problems. But I never gave up, ever, until almost one day when they brought in a junior college transfer. A kid from another school, a player from another school, they brought him in my junior year, and they put him in front of me to start. And I said to myself, I'm never going to be like my dad. I'm never going to be like my brother. I'm never going to be like my brother-in-law. I quit. I was going to quit. So I called my dad the night before the game, and I said, I give up. I'm not going to sit the bench 2,000 miles away from home. There's no way. I'm like, they brought someone in front of me. It was the night before the first game, and he said, why don't you stick it out? So collectively we agreed to stick it out. Next day, first game of the season, what do you think happened? He got hurt on the 3rd play of the game. I couldn't write it better than that. He broke his femur. I was happy. So I went in, and it was the best game of my life. I made Big Sky Player of the Week. That year, I became first team all-conference, made sure that they would never bring somebody else in front of me again. And then the next year, I was an All-American linebacker with hopes of getting drafted into the NFL. So I'm glad I didn't give up on my dreams. So I almost did. I was this close to giving up, but I didn't give up. So I go to the NFL. Draft day. 2 days of sitting there waiting for your name to get called. It was the longest 2 days of my life. I didn't get drafted. I got picked up, though, later that night as an undrafted free agent by the Dallas Cowboys. I thought, this is my shot. This is it. But my mental illness kind of took over a little bit. I had a lot of anxiety, so to speak. Bill Parcells was my coach. I don't know if you know who Bill Parcells is, but he's one of the toughest coaches there is or ever was. I went there, and I didn't sleep for 5 nights during training camp. 5 entire nights. I played in an NFL football game without sleeping for 5 days. But I didn't give up because I wanted it so bad. I would sit in the stands between practices during the sleep deprivation. Here I am, a grown man. I'm 22 years old, playing for the Dallas Cowboys, and I would cry. I would cry like a little baby because I hadn't slept in 5 nights. It was sleep deprivation. It was killing me. But I never gave up. I didn't know why these feelings were happening. Like I said, I was still undiagnosed. But I made the team. I was one of 2 undrafted free agents to make the team that year. And they started calling me Rudy, which was kind of embarrassing. But I made it. And I'll never forget the first week that I was sitting, after our first game, I was sitting in the steam room. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but you go in there, you sweat out all the toxins. I was sitting in the steam room by myself. And an old scout walked in. He had to be 80 years old, walks into the steam room, and he sat down next to me and he says, "You made me $10,000. I said, "What?" And he goes, "You made me $10,000. And I said, "Well, how did I do that?" He said, "Coach Parcells said any scout that brings in an undrafted free agent that makes the team gets a $10,000 bonus. I said, you owe me dinner. He brought me to dinner. Bill Hitt was his name. I looked at him and I said, well, how did you ever find me? I mean, I went to Northern Arizona. It's not a hotbed of football players. I'm like, how did you find me? He goes, you remember your junior year at Northern Arizona when you were playing against Sam Houston State and you chased that receiver down on a reverse and you caught him from about 20 yards away? I said, of course I remember that play. He's like, I remember that play. He's like, that play is why you're a Dallas Cowboy. I looked at him and he said, I was there scouting someone on the other team and I saw that play. I was like, wow. You know, and he looks at me and he goes, in this old man voice, he goes, you never know who's watching. And it's so true though. In anything in life, you don't know who's watching you do anything. I mean, here today, you know, people are watching you, how you act, out with your friends, in school, at your job, whatever it is. People are watching. And that taught me a big lesson that day. So I went on, I played for the Cowboys for 2 years. I was a special teams player. I played well, but they switched their defense from a 4-3 to a 3-4. Schematically, I didn't fit in anymore. And I got cut. And I didn't know what was going to go on with my life. I had no idea. So I went home, I sat on the couch, and I just waited. And I finally got a phone call from the Indianapolis Colts. And it was Bill Polian. And he said, we want you to come to Indianapolis, get on a plane tonight, and we have a game this week. And that wasn't great, let me tell you, for my mental health. I was excited, but things just kind of clicked. And I went without sleep again. I went 4 nights. And this time, it was the day before my first game with the Indianapolis Colts, and I hadn't slept in 4 nights. And I said, you know what? I need help. This isn't healthy. So I went into Coach Tony Dungy's office the day before the game. I mean, we were leaving that day to get on a plane in about 2 hours. And I walked into his office and I said, I can't play tomorrow. And he looks at me and he goes, what's going on? Are you hurt? I said, no, Coach, I haven't slept in 4 nights and I don't know what's going on. You know? And he looks at me with a very concerned look on his face and he said, okay, go sit in the office, a big office. And he brought in Bill Polian, who was a general manager. He brought in my position coach. He brought in the head trainer, the team doctor, and he brought in my wife. And I was like, wow, this is serious. Or the way they're treating me is unbelievable. And we sat down and we talked, and we decided I wasn't going to play in the game. And they gave me some anxiety medication. I still was not diagnosed bipolar disorder yet. And they left, and 3 days later I was back practicing. 2 weeks later I was named captain by my teammates because of the way I was playing. 4 weeks later they extended my contract for 2 more years. And it just made me prove to me that there's people out there, no matter what level there is, there's people out there that you can go to and ask for help. You know, if it's Tony Dungy or your parents or your neighbors or your best friend, people want to help. People care. And that's what I learned from that people truly care about your health and about you. So I played there for a couple years, 3 years, and we won the Super Bowl. And I played in the Super Bowl with 2 broken ribs, a sprained MCL, a high ankle sprain, and bipolar disorder. And I played one of the best games of my life. And I was still undiagnosed. And we went on, we won. It was one of the best days of my life. Everything that I had been through, all the injuries, all the anguish and everything like that, to finally make it and finally win was great. And I got cut from the Colts, and that was devastating because I really, really enjoyed playing for that team and that organization. And I went to the New York Giants. And at this point in my life, I played 5 seasons, I had a Super Bowl win. I decided to retire. Something I was very happy with, something Jill was very happy with, something that, you know, I made the NFL my dream, I won a Super Bowl my dream, and it was time to move on to the next part of my life. Well, I thought being done with the NFL would erase all these issues. You know, the stress, you know, the NFL, all the pressure, but I was far from wrong. I went back to Buffalo, New York, built our dream home, and started working, started jobs, wanted to start a family. And we got pregnant with our first child. And my wife, we had a miscarriage. We lost our baby. And within the bipolar disorder world, so to speak, there's a term called a trigger. And that was my trigger for my bipolar disorder to come out, was a loss of my baby. And I went into what we call a manic episode. And at first, everything was great. I was very euphoric. I was very goal-oriented and motivated. And I was on top of the world. I was on cloud 9. And my wife is over here crying about our lost baby. And I'm off over here. Eventually, those feelings or those symptoms turn into paranoia and anxiety, more than I can express to you today. And eventually I started having delusions. Things were happening to me that were not real. I lost it, so to speak. I thought my phones were tapped. I thought my computer and emails, and I thought my brainwaves and my thoughts were getting tapped by some higher being. I know it sounds pretty weird, but these things happen to people, everyday people, and it happened to me. And I eventually went into psychosis, which means you lose complete touch with reality. And I started hallucinating and seeing things that weren't real. And by this time, we went, and I was finally diagnosed at this point, you think, right? And I was diagnosed with, it's called bipolar disorder 1. And bipolar disorder, the way it works for most people is you go up, and then you go down. And I fell into a depression for about 6 months. And I'm talking about not getting out of my bed for days, not showering for weeks, not eating, and crying for no reason at all. It was an extreme case of bipolar disorder, and finally I went about 18 months trying to find the right medication. And I was very suicidal at times. It was very scary, the thoughts that I had, but I never gave up. And finally, we met with a specialist in Buffalo, and we got on the right meds. And it took a while from trial and error to get on the right meds, but I'm finally on what I think is the right combination of medication. And bipolar disorder is very tricky. It's very hard to find the right meds, and I believe I'm on the right meds now. So my wife and I were living in Buffalo at the time. We decided to move to Phoenix because of the weather, because of the sunshine, because we went to school here, because we love it here. And I believe that we are finally on the right path to find wellness. Everything I've been through, I've learned from. And I'm sure you guys see out with your work, with your charity work, some guys, some homeless people, or some people in the society who aren't well mentally. And I just want to let you know that it happens to everybody. And they're really, at the end of the day, no different than you and I. With that said, I started a foundation. It's called Fourth and Forever. The meaning behind it, fourth down in the NFL, is the last chance you have to get first down. So it's the last chance. And forever is just like my illness. I'll have it forever, and sometimes it feels like forever. And I'm very, very passionate about it. And I want to thank you very much for having me come speak today. So, thank you.